God almighty. Completely put me off my story very much. We have given out stewardship forms to everyone in the parish in the last couple of months, asking people to reconsider whether they feel called to give more, the same or less in the coming year. And those forms need to be in this weekend to, namely our church treasurer isn't here, so myself, Rosemary, Beverly, Wayne or Gwen, who isn't here, can you make sure those come to us so that we can then make adjustments? If we hear nothing from you, we will presume that your pledge is the same as it either was when you were at Christchurch, if you've come from Christchurch, or it has been for the last year as you have been at St Bart's. This is immensely important to us as we are part of the Diocese of Bristol, and we need to help them to know how to work out their budget. And it's important for us because we believe in Little Church to the extent that we want one person on our staff team for whom it is their primary responsibility to head this up. They will also work on Alpha, and they'll be working on helping our various community engagement groups like our toddler groups and other outreach groups that we run during the week across the parish to be more effective in what they're already doing. And at the last PCC meeting, we talked about how we might build a church of 1,000 people across 3 sites. And the first question was, why would we want to build a church of 1,000 people across 3 sites? And the answers were fantastic. I was so encouraged. One of them was, because if we didn't, we might as well go home. That's why we would want to do it. And in order to do that, I think we need about 7 or 8 members of staff. And we need to make investments early on in that process. So that's what you know. I firmly believe that actually, in order to ensure that people have good ownership of their church, the staff team must remain relatively small. 7 or 8 may sound large to you, but if you look at most churches that are 1,000, they have about 20 people on their staff. And you end up having an argument between the PCC and the staff over how the money is spent. And so I believe that we need to invest early on in a relatively small and agile staff who can help the people of God to do what God is calling us to do. So Little Church is actually what the Bible tells us to do, but it's actually a brilliant model for church in the 21st century because it gives the responsibility to the people of God and takes it away from people like me who get given these things. And we work together in seeing God in our midst. So that's the finance bit. There are spare forms at the back, is that right? Speak to Wayne. It'd be good to have those in today or tomorrow if you haven't already given them in. Thank you. We're now going to explain a little bit about Big Church. Vicky, I think I need that lead. You can talk amongst yourselves. Why don't you talk and say to people around you one thing that you enjoyed from this morning's talk that you heard? Because the people around you may not have been here. This morning's talk might not. Good. Sorry to interrupt you.
Tell you later.
Exactly, tell each other later and carry on. Now we're going to talk about what we're doing on Sunday mornings. The parish of Bishops and St Andrews, for those of you who don't know, was formed in 1997. There were 2 parishes, the parish of St Michael's, with the Good Shepherd and the parish of St Bartholomew's. And they were brought together in 1997. And they basically had 3 separate patterns of worship, with an early morning communion, a mid-morning service, and then a later sort of evening song or evening service. And what we've been doing over the last year across the whole of the parish is looking at how we can be more effective in the way that we operate as 3 churches. We've decided that our primary strategy is going to be to make new disciples. This is going to get interesting because it's going to drop off the... There we go. To make disciples in North Bristol. That is our strapline as a parish now. The PCC has adopted that. And we are one parish with 3 worship centres. The way we're going to make disciples is a command that we should love God and love our neighbour as ourselves. It's fairly simple. We've been thinking a lot here over the last 6 months about this little triangle, up, in, out, that all our decisions and the way that we think about church is based around up, worship, in, fellowship, and out, mission. That actually no one decision should be dominated by exclusively one of those. And it's been really helpful to have that. So, big church at St Bart's. What does that mean for us? Before I get to the next bit, I just want to explain. The way that we do it here in this parish is that we try to be Anglican about this, a bit revolutionary really. So I tend to use these things on the side of my head and this thing in here and listen to what's going on. What's God doing? What's God saying? And talk about that with other people who are involved in the leadership of the parish, with the other clergy and the church wardens and the PCC. And I begin to share, and we begin to share as clergy, the strategy, and we test it and we take it to the various different groups of people. And so what I'm about to share now has been taken through the District Church Council, which is here at St Bart's, and the Parish Church Council, which looks after all 3 churches. And when we get to this stage, what we do is we put it out there and we give people the opportunity to respond and say what they think. And we do it in a place of worship rather than in a hall, because we think that makes a difference about the attitudes, because we're saying this consciously in a place of worship. So in a moment, when I've finally finished prattling on about what we're going to be doing, there'll be an opportunity for you to respond and for you to say what you think, and the microphone will be passed round. And hopefully what will happen is what happened at St Michael's, that somebody asked me a really difficult question and the next person answered it, so I didn't have to. So we'll see. So what I think we're saying we'd like to try from January through to July, so a 7-month trial period here at St Bart's, is we do church from 9 until 12 on a Sunday. There will be different starting points within that time and different ending points. So some of you may come and go at different times on different weeks. But this notion of it being, this is when we do church as a family, from 9 until 12. My father was a priest in the Church of England, and one of the things he said about a service that my second son was baptised at, he said it was a bit like a Greek Orthodox service. The only thing that was missing were the goats coming in and out of the church. And there was, I think there was this, what he saw was a sense of movement and kind of beautiful chaos about a community in worship. And I think that's something that we are aiming for, a kind of an ordered but disordered family, where we come and go at different times. So what we're suggesting is that there will be a... why is it not working on this one slide? Oh, right, okay, there. It's taking ages to write. At 9 o'clock, there will be a communion service here. It will be reflective. It will be missional. We will be hoping that people will come to this, because in that space, in that hour from 9 until 10 each week, they find the presence of the living God. There will be hymns and some songs, and maybe the odd and Teze chants. We'll bring our Teze spirituality that we've had here for the last few years into that service. There'll be a short sermon and an opportunity to be prayed for. At 10 o'clock, we'll have coffee, and people will be arriving for potentially the next. Is it taking forever to arrive? I'm useless with these things. There will be a 10:30 start to 20 minutes of all-age worship. And the idea is that in those 20 minutes, there will be kids in, we'll be singing songs like we did at the start of this morning. The kids will be able to sing them, we'll be doing actions, there'll be a time of prayer and confession, and then the kids will go out to their groups. And those groups will happen pretty much every week. And then if you're a member of Early Bird will continue in the hall. So basically what we've been doing over the last 10 years with our Early Bird congregation will continue, but it will continue in the hall. And it may be that some of our Early Bird family will want more than the content of the Early Bird services, so they can stay in here if they want to and listen to the next part of the service or partake in that, which will be teaching, worship and response. So the idea is that hopefully the bit that everyone will be present for is the coffee in between. That people will think of it as a 10 to 10:30 service or a 9:30 service that goes on, and we will be family together, which is better than what happens at the moment because we've got two Sunday morning congregations that are essentially separate. What else do I want to say about this other than I think it's brilliant? Not because I came up with it, somebody else came up with it, as is the case at St Michael's. I think this gives us a really good opportunity to reach out to a whole range of people in the area, people who would light a candle at home and think of themselves as Buddhists but were once Christians, who are seeking spirituality, that actually they may find that 9 o'clock service really stimulating. It may be that some of you who would want to come to the 10:30 service might actually come along at 9 o'clock as well and find something there that speaks in the stillness to the depths of your soul. And what we would love to see is people serving in the other service to the one that they go to, so that you end up with people coming early and doing coffee. So we're doing a similar pattern at St Michael's. It just starts at 9:30 rather than 9. And the people who come to the earlier service have said, we will do the washing up from coffee. And the people who are coming to the later service will say, we will come early and prepare the coffee. So what we'd love to see is people being prepared to serve in one or the other. And if that was the case, then you wouldn't necessarily be serving every week. You wouldn't be committing from 9 till 12 every Sunday to a rota. So don't worry about that. I want to put this also within the context of what we're doing as a whole parish. So this is going to take forever, sorry. I don't know why I did this. But basically, this is what we are aiming for. That we will offer, as of the summer of next year, 9 services on 3 sites every week. And none of them will be the same, they will all be different, until such point as one of those services gets so big that it can't fit inside the building in which it's meeting. So the problem we've had in the past is that our congregations are getting smaller in bigger buildings, and we haven't known quite, we've got some ideas. Now I think we're getting to the point where we're saying, great, let's aim for growth, and we will try to grow out of the buildings in which we are meeting, so that we may have 10, or when one of those drops off, we will be able to plant another congregation into that building. So that's how it works roughly. St Michael's have agreed to this, the Good Shepherd have agreed to this. So you are the last part of the jigsaw. The thing at the bottom that you probably can't see is this idea that actually at the first 7 services, we will be preaching mainly from the Gospels, because we want people to have deep inside their beings a knowledge of who Jesus is, what he did when he walked this earth, and what he can do for us now. And often when we get distracted in the Old Testament, it can become synagogue preaching, and in the epistles it can be telling people what the church should be, and we forget about Jesus. And so we will preach from those passages, but we will focus them in the gospel. And then in the evenings we will look to start a service at 7:15, where the sermon will be put on the internet in the days after, where we will be doing some more in-depth teaching about the Old Testament and the epistles related to the Gospels. And the hope is that because those other services during the day are public acts of worship, what we really want is we want people to walk into church and say, truly there is a God, and to hear the stories of Jesus, and to know that he is King. So, I am prepared to admit that I have got this wrong. So, please speak your mind and tell us how you respond to that. And let us listen carefully to one another. There are sacrifices involved in this. There are sacrifices around those of you who may find that going to church at 9:30 because that's how you've been doing it at Christchurch, or at 6:30 or 11 o'clock. That fits your routine at the moment. There's sacrifices for you involved in that. There's also sacrifices for those here who come to a 10 o'clock service. I'm asking a big thing of that congregation to move from 10 o'clock to 9 o'clock. And I'm finishing on this because I know that is the biggest ask that I am making. And I do this because at the DCC meeting, we wrestled with this for a long time, and we tried to think about whether we could move it back to 9:30, and we found that actually that would mean that the end of the morning would be too late. In an ideal world, everyone would go to church at 10 o'clock. You look at most churches that have one service and they're at 10 o'clock more often than not. But we can't do that if we're going to have 2 services. And I think it's been increasingly clear to us over this journey since March that actually we won't all fit into one sack. There's a guy who writes on church who says that it's a bit, sometimes it's a bit like putting 2 ferrets in the same sack. They just fight with each other. And it's best just to set each other up with some kind of clarity and distinction about what we're trying to do in each service. So I'm aware that for some people this is going to be really difficult. And I encourage you to tell me that. I'm not here for you to sugarcoat how you feel. Emma.
Right.
Do you want to wait for Annika?
Is it on?
Yeah. Do you want to stand up? So.
Don't make this as painful than it is. Right. I am worried about the 9 o'clock service is communion.
Team out.
I feel like I should sing a song. Right. The 9 o'clock service is communion. Is there communion at the family service as well?
Thank you.
Because we've had children who have taken this thing to be able to take communion, and if they can't take communion at the family service, what's the point?
Thank you. There will be communion. The aim is that every one of those services, other than Evensong, which is specifically designed not to be a communion service, will have a communion service in it at some point, whether that is monthly, weekly, or more regularly than monthly. Fortnightly, thanks very much. Or every 3 weeks or something. Yeah, good. I don't do maths with Jacob at home. So yes, because the aim of every Christian community should be that we would break bread and share wine together. I think it's just one of the preconceptions I was wanting to navigate was that you can't. Some people would say you can't do communion and have it as a service that's open to others who come in from the outside, and I wholly disagree with that. And I think we can do a 9 o'clock service that is accessible to people who aren't yet Christians. And we will have communion as part of what we do at 10:30, and it will be a part of what we do at 9:30 at St Michael's, and at 10:30 at St Michael's, and what we do at 5 o'clock. Thank you. Great question. Mike was first. It was a quick McGraw from Mike.
Couple of things. I think the moving to a pattern which is weekly, regular, is a very important step, because people then don't have to think, well, is it the first Sunday or the second Sunday or whatever. That's great. I think the provision of a weekly thing for children and young people, with what appears to be more time than we've had at present trying to fit in with services, is a brilliant step forward. I have no problems personally with any of the services or proposals. The question that I would have is, the early bird, when it was set up here, was in a specific response to demand from parents with young children who are up very early in the morning, to have something early in the morning that they could come to, get it over with, have a little bit of teaching, and then get on with the rest of the day. What thought has been given to whether that's going to be accessible to them at the later time, which is going to take them through to lunchtime? And the only other question I thought as well, if I could put it in and I finished, is how are our links with the uniformed organisations and parade services going to fit in with that? I think we have at the moment about 6 a year.
Thank you. Great. I'll take the uniformed organisations question first, if that's okay. I don't know. And there's lots of things I don't know.
You've been listening to Ross.
I haven't actually. I've been in separate locations through, but yes. I don't know. I don't even know how we're going to do United Parish Services in the future, and I'm the person who's responsible for that. We will work it out, and I think part of setting ourselves towards a goal is that we trust that if God's in that, then he will help us to work out the other stuff. The other question was about early bird. A lot of thought has been given to that. I think what we recognise is that within early bird, if you look at it, there are there's a lot of preschool age children there, and not many that are older than that. And if you recognise that actually getting your children out of the house every morning to get to school in the week, and then the different activities they might choose to do on a Saturday morning, getting 6, 7, 8, 9-year-olds out of the house on a Sunday morning to get to somewhere for 9 o'clock is harder. And I think that's probably one of the dynamics in play in terms of early bird at the moment. So I think we're also acknowledging that we are in a position within the city where we're likely to draw people in from that angle. And so to get from somewhere to us for 9 o'clock, never mind just people who are walking around the corner, isn't that easy. And therefore acknowledging that the type of person who would come to a 9 o'clock service, that's a reflective communion service,